The explanation of INEC vis-a-vis also what the EU had said. And I mean, you watched the edition of the program. And the Labour Party has been itching to react to that conversation about what Mr. Festus Okoye said. What are the reactions within the Labour Party about this?
I'll say this. Since Mr. Okoye's vituperations on your show, I have not sat in any collective of the Labour Party, but I will speak as a Nigerian, of course, one who worked within the Labour Party conclave and who has had occasion, of course, to speak with one or two persons. I wasn't in any way, shape, or form surprised by Mr. Festus Okoye's vituperations in your chambers.
Would you call it vituperations?
They are vituperations because they have
his own explanation.
No, they are vituperations. Vituperations are essentially outflows that do not flow from common sense. And that is what the gentleman did in your chambers here. Let me be very clear. INEC is a public body established by law, bound to work according to the law. It advertised its guidelines. It told the world what the guidelines were going to be. The taste of the pudding is in the eating. The reality is that for a long time, the electoral processes had been abandoned by Nigerians because they lack trust and confidence in the process. So the advertisement of beavers, the IRF and everything, they were quite vociferous in explaining to Nigerians and reassuring us of what would happen with the system. To now have Mr. Festus Okoye sit down here and open his mouth, there must be a disconnect between the mouth and the brain box for him to offer anything short of an apology, unreserved one, to Nigerians for the utter failure to pretended by INEC. Let me say this. In a sane environment where people are still governed by reason, the likes of Mr. Festus Okoye should either have resigned or be somewhere writing his statements, explaining to Nigerians what happened. Glitch. The question is, that glitch, is it a glitch in human brain, a glitch in the technical systems, or a glitch occasioned by the complete shutdown of human conscience? So when the person now comes here and he sits down and he begins to offer explanations at variance with common sense, as has been attested to by anybody who observed this election or was here in this country, all the evidences are very clear, and it shows very clearly that everything that should work on that day worked except INEC. The integrity of INEC as an institution went on exile. So if a person who is now purporting to speak on behalf of such an organization is so lacking in shame that he will sit down here and even things that shouldn't issue forth for, I'm no longer practicing, and I'm restrained in speaking to the case that is before the court.
So I like us to stay away from the personality of
it's not about
so that we can just say about let's say on the issue. And I'd like to take you on some of the things he said to us, that is the explanation of the commission, that the commission within its capacity did its best. And let's look at it first and foremost. One of the things INEC promised was the beavers. So the question is, do you think that the beavers worked?
Everything worked except INEC.
Okay, so when you say everything worked except INEC, yes, what exactly do you mean by that?
Okay. I wasn't just speaking to the election. I participated. I was at the polling unit as designated. The beavers machine worked as much as it was allowed to work by human machinations. Because at my own polling booth, the first said, oh, some alphabets were not working, so they couldn't accredit those on time. We later realized that it was designed to frustrate some people into leaving. But people were determined to vote, so they waited. Eventually, in my place, they allowed the beavers machine to accredit those they had earlier left out. Voting did not end in my polling unit until about 8:40 something in the evening, and they did not finish counting until about 1:42 or 1:43 a.m.
That's the following day?
Yes.
Is this isolated in your area, or was this what it was common around where you had friends or what your party, for example?
It would be unfair to everybody concerned, including myself, for me to speak to what is outside my direct knowledge and participation. I am speaking to what I saw. How many of those incidents you might find all over the country will be left to observers to say or speak to? But on the day in question, everything worked in my own space until it came to upload. And then they could upload House of Reps, they could upload Senate, but the presidential election result was not amenable to upload.
To your mind, what do you think went wrong?
It is very clear what went wrong. INEC deliberately, and I say this without any equivocation and with all sense of responsibility, INEC deliberately sabotaged the electoral process because it was working to a predetermined, obnoxious, and nauseous conclusion. It's not about the system failing. It's about human beings electing on their own to sabotage a system. This is, if I switch off the TV screen behind you, it goes off. But it requires my intervention to go off.
If you look at the 2015 election, I don't know if you participated, and you jump into 2019 and then 2023, if you look at those three last elections, how would you describe the development and the progress of our electoral process?
Let me put it this way. What INEC has done is that it has more or less placed our democracy. I wasn't always convinced as to the truthfulness of that exercise anyway, but what they have done essentially is to remove the place of the citizens, the place of the voters from the electoral process. It simply means that any two-bit person that is assigned to the office of the electoral, the chairman of INEC can do exactly what the resident commissioner in Adamawa did, and unilaterally on his own, following the example of Yakubu, declare anybody he cares to declare and say, go to court. So if you're looking at the 2015 election, the 2019 election, all I can tell you is that the 2023 election is the bottom pot of Nigerian electoral malfeasance. Everything that was ever wrong in elections came to the fore in 2023, essentially because Yakubu lost his sense of shame.
So when you are personalizing it...
it's not personalizing. I'm sorry, Shem, I need to clear this.
Yeah, because you are mentioning...
I have to mention him.
And it's just one person in that
head. He is the head.
So what would you like him to...
The head is rotten.
You think he's
to
blame? What blame
is an institutional blame.
Okay.
The blame is for the entire institution. I dealt with INEC in Lagos on behalf of the Obi campaign. It was my brief to pick up the election material for the petition. I know the level of stonewalling, and I made sure to write officially at the time to let them know. I know the amount of stonewalling, deliberate stonewalling and delays that we encountered from the wreck in Lagos, and everybody concerned with giving us electoral material that we had paid for. We had to bring copiers from outside, from Rank Xerox, to come to INEC, to come and make photocopies. It was that bad. They stonewalled us every step of the way. So if I'm saying Yakubu, I'm only speaking about Yakubu as a type, not as a person. He is a type, but he is the one who sits at the head of the organization.
So you think the 2023 outing of
is the worst ever?
So, but how then do you think the election was rigged or was manipulated, or how would you describe it?
Put it this way. If we're speaking to the participation of Nigerians, their involvement in the process, you cannot fault Nigerians. Across the political divides, we might have our differences, we had our arguments, but the beauty of democracy is that when you vote and somebody emerges in a clear and credible process, you applaud. And then you go away, you go prepare for the next election, expecting and hoping that you'll be able to persuade the people by showing how bad the policies of the people who have won might have been, so that they will vote for you the next time. But in a situation where you see the level of brigandage that were evidenced, especially on March 18, not just the 25th now, the level of